Welcome to Bible Study with Fred. I'm going to read from the King James Version, the Authorized Version today, starting in Genesis 31:36, continuing with the confrontation that Jacob had with Laban when Laban overcaught him. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and she goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 for thy two daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast charged my wages 10 times. Thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God has seen mine affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. Jacob is very angry or wroth, used previously in reference to Cain in Genesis 4. He chode, the past tense of chide, meaning to rebuke someone, to speak angrily at. The Hebrew word is translated for plead, strive, contend, and debate. He defies Laban to explain what sin he committed against Laban to justify this hot pursuit and search of Jacob's belongings. He served Laban for 2 decades and served him well, looking after and multiplying Laban's possessions, taking responsibility himself for any losses. He suffered much physically. For 14 years, he worked to earn Leah and Rachel, and for 6 years, the wealth that was his, enduring many changes of payment. Laban is a crook, and were it not for God's hand in this, Jacob is certain he would have been forced to go away empty handed. God saw his suffering and hard work, and that is why Laban was warned by the God of Jacob's fathers not to harm him, and he's got a purpose, a place in God's plan. Be warned about employers like this. This is a good lesson to learn also regarding God's will and blessing someone in a difficult situation where those with power are against them. God can help you prosper even when you are being cheated, oppressed, or held in contempt. This does not justify an employer saying that you should trust in God so he can cheat you out of your pay. It just lets you know that God can help even in a situation where everything seems to be against you if you're doing right. Notice the extra mile that Jacob went to protect Laban's assets and take losses upon himself. Jacob was an independent contractor whose hours worked in the day were not determined by his employer. He used his knowledge and God's will to accomplish his work, making sure that his employer received no hurt when possible. For you who complain about how you are treated by your employer, do you take responsibility for losses on your watch like Jacob did? Of course, this only applies to an independent contractor situation, you might think. But at work, do you give your employer all the work they're paying for? Do you take office supplies home, or do you have little regard for wasting your employer's equipment or being efficient? This is a two-way street. The employee who expects God to bless them in spite of a bad situation better not find that he or she is just as much a villain as the boss if they want that blessing. And also keep in mind that Jacob is kind of getting the comeuppance, kind of seeing what it's like to be on the other end of being tricked, as he did to his brother and his father. So, going to continue reading in 43 to 55. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, unto their children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones, and they took stones, and made an heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take otherwise beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed, and returned unto his place. Now Laban replies that Rachel and Leah are his daughters, and that Jacob's offspring belong to him. He claims that Jacob's sheep are his sheep, and everything Jacob has carried off belongs to him. He then admits that he could not possibly do any harm to his daughters and their children, weakly cutting Jacob out of the equation. After his verbal domination game, he then offers a covenant to Jacob. I would presume he knows he is beaten in this, that he cannot go against Jacob and face God's wrath. They laid a pile of stones to memorialize their covenant. Laban called it Jagar Sahadutha, which Strong says, confirmed by the context, means witness heap. Jacob calls it Gilead. This also means witness heap, according to Strong's. It is given the names Gilead and Mizpah, meaning a watchtower. Laban and most fathers can understand the sentiment as Laban warns that this heap of stones signifies that God is watching Jacob's behavior towards Laban's daughters. Laban acknowledges Jehovah God as the judge between himself and Jacob. Neither of them is to pass that heap of stones to each other with the intent of doing harm. Jacob agreed and offered a sacrifice, and then they had a meal. The next day, Laban departed after kissing his daughters and grandchildren, presumably never to see them again. Laban is engaged in a psychological device where he feels more secure, even though he has no security. The presumed weaker party in a conflict that is revealed has a powerful ally who changes the balance of power in the conflict. The party that thought it had all the power now demands an agreement where they mutually agree not to harm each other, as if he still had the power to harm the weaker party and would be held back by the agreement he proposed. Neither Laban nor you, nor your employer, nor your government, nor any individual or collective you can imagine is able to stand against God, all contracts, signed agreements, and treaties aside. God's plan of reconciling mankind to himself continues, and another saint has been nurtured and strengthened in a potential enemy's camp, receiving booty and gain. Then moving on, the stage is now being set for the creation of the people of Israel, through which Christ will come. I want to make a final comment about Laban's psychological ploy. This verbal domination thing, this implication of implied, I have power over you, I can hurt you. Parents do it, regular people do it. It's a weakness. When you say to somebody, if you do this, I'm going to do that, even if you have no indication that that person ever planned on doing that. Maybe somebody else said it. Parents do it like this. You got two kids, one kid does some bad stuff, and you say to the other kid, you have no reason to believe they've done anything, and you say, if you do that, I'm going to kick your butt. Well, that's weak, man. That is weak. Verbal domination is weak. And when you do it to another person, when you do it to an adult, if you get your rear end kicked, you deserved it. So be careful playing verbal domination games. Speak the truth and speak plainly and speak as a Christian and not as a carnal Esau type person. So Laban, okay? Laban was trying to presume power he didn't have, and he knew it. So anyway, for all you macho boys out there who think you're all that in a bag of chips, keep that in mind. You are weak when you play domination games. And if you get called on the domination games, you deserve it. All right. We're going to start with chapter 32 next time. Thank you for watching.